Hello and welcome to HR Table Talk, a podcast-style webinar series designed for HR leaders in the SMB space, featuring topics from Verified First's HR at the Table webinar series. For our live attendees today, if you would like to receive 0.75 SHRM and/or HRCI credits, stay until the very end of the webinar for our post-webinar survey. This will pop up directly on your screen and will include information on how to redeem your credit. For any of our on-demand listeners today, check your email for instructions on how to redeem your credit. I'm Jess Rowe from Verified First, and I'm joined by my colleague, Brianna Rosenkrantz, as well as Siobhan Torvey and Ananth T from Zoho. Today, we'll be unwrapping some of the insights that Prestige Care's Director of Talent Acquisition shared on how to attract and retain quality talent with what you've got. So glad you could join us. Let's get started. Siobhan, what was one of the greatest takeaways from the HR at the Table webinar with Blake Thies?
Yeah, so Blake spoke really well. What Blake said about attracting and retaining the younger generation is quite spot on. You know, the next generation of candidates, they don't want to work for money alone. An organization should actually speak to them and explain what it actually offers them. They actually want a sense of fulfillment, and they want to be challenged all the time and solve problems. That's exactly what they want. I also like what he said about using technology to enhance candidate experience. In today's age, there's nothing that you cannot do with technology. Uh, like sharing the company's vision to the right candidates, interview notifications, guiding them through the hiring process. I think you can achieve a lot and enhance the candidate's experience during recruitment using technology.
Absolutely. I love that you hit on guiding and directing HR to the candidates that really are the best suited for that position that they're hiring for. I think that's great to have pointed out. So appreciate you sharing that. You know, right now recruiting is such a vital role in the talent acquisition space. However, you do know smaller organizations are a little more limited in their recruitment initiatives and the resources that they have available, whether that be because of their team size or ability to outsource to staffing agencies. Really, to start off today's discussion and to set the tone for using what you've got to attract and retain quality talent, Ananth, what are some tips to thinking creatively in your talent acquisition strategy?
Certainly. So everyone has a careers page listing their available jobs, but they may not cut it actually, to be honest. It's important that you first build a brand for the company and has human resources, talent acquisition. It's your job to be the face of the company. I would recommend them to get creative. It could be that they can post pictures of employees, highlight what it looks like to be in the office, how employees are there in the company, what are the perks. It's more like you bring the experience of the employees working for these companies into the pages. It could be that you have it on your website. You also link it to the careers page, which displays this job opening. And add to that, it could be that you also use other options, something like social media posting. So you become much more versatile, much more interactive in these pages so that other companies or, like let's say, potential employees know that this is something I really want to know about. And then they visit your job section. Another thing I think will be valuable is on the employee referrals, is you not just cut cost on your recruiting expenses, but recruiting your own people to be brand ambassadors. That is something like a great method to get into knowing the potential hire as well as for your own employees so that it boosts morale for them. Companies looking to build brands may also look at events that exhibit where you maybe pull up banners, like you explain how your culture works, teams, departments. It could be job fairs, it could be your own events that you have. Wherever your brand is available, try to pitch in where there are people that could potentially be your own employees. So you think creatively in your talent acquisition strategy. Make sure the ATS that you use, the applicant tracking system, the recruitment software, it should make it easy for the candidates to apply for the job and not vice versa, that you pressurize them in submitting, let's say, 50 questions and answers, mandating them to register, fill up lengthy forms. So that may not cut it. think creatively. You may not have all the resources, but make it much more productive, much more easier for candidates to come and view that this company is hiring for a job opening.
Yeah, I love that you point out how important it is to incorporate creativity into your talent acquisition strategy, that it's not just a matter of here's what we have and here's what we can do, but here's what we have, how can we find 5 different ways to utilize this resource to draw on candidates? How can we evaluate the current market and see and really evaluate where people are at, what they're drawn to, and utilizing your company's draws to bring people in, to make them want to apply and learn more about your organization. So I think that's wonderful that you guys are incorporating that there at Zoho and encouraging others to do the same thing. So, you know, when presenting your organization to candidates, as you've just discussed, Anant, whether in person or online, you have to have a solidified offering and presence. Other words, building your brand strategy. In order to do that, Brianna, how can employers create an employer brand strategy with those limited resources?
Yeah, great question. And, I just want to go a little bit off of what Anant was talking about and, talk about why brand matters to your talent pipeline. According to LinkedIn, a winning brand strategy can reduce the cost per hire by 50% and increase the number of applicants by 50%. And that is huge. Additionally, time to fill decreases by 1 to 2 times when an employer has that strong employer brand strategy. However, on the other side, when employers, according to Harvard Business Review, when employers don't have that strong employer brand, then they can expect to pay 10% more in wages just to attract top job talent. And not to mention, 43% of candidates who have a poor experience with your organization post about that experience on their social networks. And this actually deters other potential candidates from even applying or being the determining factor for why someone chooses to go with the competition over your organization. So as we can see, having a strong employer brand strategy is so crucial because it allows employers to maintain some of that bargaining power when recruiting talent and negotiating with talent. So, how can organizations build this brand strategy? There's a couple different ways to do this, and I'm going to dive into it a little bit right now, but we'll talk about it throughout the rest of this discussion today. So one of those ways being gaining internal support. A brand is a company's investment in its people, in its future. So for it to be valued externally, it has to be supported internally. According to SHRM, 45% of internal hiring is a result of employee referrals. So the potential for your organization's employees to be your biggest cheerleaders is huge, and it's so crucial in supporting your organization's recruitment initiatives. The second thing is to differentiate your employee value proposition. As Blake said in the original webinar, organizations should really work to find the differences and the unique experiences and the benefits of candidates working for your organization over the competitors. So, he suggested taking all of that information and then maximizing it by 3 times to really show the value of why a candidate should work with your organization. The third thing here is to highlight why candidates should choose you over the competition. Is it because of a strong company culture? Does it have to do with workplace structure or team dynamics? Do you offer internal career mobility? Do you have opportunities for professional development? So really highlighting those additional benefits outside of just, benefits like insurance or PTO, and highlighting the opportunities for employees to grow within an organization can really set your candidates apart from, applying for the competitors. And the last thing that I want to address is assessing the touch points in which your brand is shown to candidates and really refining that experience to make sure that your brand is consistent. No matter where your message is at, making sure it's the same in tone and delivery and style, whatever that may be. Some considerations are understanding how your applicants are finding you when they're researching your organization. What are they finding, and how can you get ahead of that beforehand to create an amazing, employee experience for them that they want to be involved in. Another thing is, how are you communicating with candidates and applicants throughout the application process? Are you replying promptly, or is it delayed? there's been scenarios where employers or candidates ghost each other. So is that something you're participating in? That's really important to understand how the candidate is experiencing your organization. And then another consideration is what type of resources can you create or already exist to help the candidates in their decision to, support their decision in determining whether or not they want to apply or work for your organization. So, overall, we know that employer brand strategy is important. And Siobhan, I want to get your input on this. Why is it important to remain consistent in your brand throughout the candidate and employee lifecycle?
Yeah, I think what you said is spot on. Brand is actually an entity of the mind and the heart, and it's really easy to mess it up. Brand is something that you perceive about an organization or a product. And it's not just in recruitment, but even otherwise, brands need to communicate who they are, and they have to be consistent. There are obviously great brands out there who talk about who they are, who talk about who their customers are, and being consistent is actually what made them who they are today. Nowhere is this consistency more important than in your recruitment process, and it starts with your careers pages in your website. If a candidate has identified and engaged with a brand enough to work for them, the worst thing that a brand can do is suddenly change the message of who they are. And when candidates click on your website, the message is completely changed. That's the worst thing that they can do. As a brand, who you are and what you stand for needs to be reflected at every stage of the recruitment process. And it's quite similar for existing employees as well. Brand consistency is crucial for employees to understand what their company stands for, why it is important, so that they can grow with the brand and protect the brand as well.
Absolutely. I love that you hone in on the consistency factor there. And even within organizations in the last 2 years, they've had to be adaptable, to pivot quickly and evolve. But even in the face of those adaptations, remaining consistent throughout that and communicating any changes is so vital. So I love that you touched on that. And really, in a world of fierce competition against different industries, smaller organizations really do have to work much harder to stick out to their individual talent pool. So Brianna, how can HR and or talent acquisition professionals build a candidate pipeline with their limited resources?
I think this is a great question, Jess. There are so many things employers can do to build their talent pipeline through internal means. And one of those being, through what Ananth was talking about, is encouraging those employee referrals and capitalizing on them, because employee referrals are absolutely great for your organization. Not only because it indicates a strong company culture, because these employees are willing to share job postings within their own social network, but also because employee referrals make for some of the best workers. Oftentimes employees don't want to refer someone or vouch for someone when they don't think that they can perform. So this is where you really get those quality candidates. The second thing, which is definitely not new, but it is a bit unique, and that is creating these employee alumni networks by basically establishing a community where, your employees post-employment can still engage with your company and other employees who are involved, and really just create this great culture that continues on. And this is super important because it completely transforms the employee experience and the way employees, leave your organization. It makes for a much more peaceful transition out of the organization, but it increases the likelihood of great talent returning because they love the experience you were able to provide them. The third thing is promoting employee brand ambassadors, which is what Ananth was talking about, because you have so much potential to recruit talent just by utilizing the resources you already have, the current employees you have. So creating a workplace culture that they want to represent and that they're prideful of is a great opportunity to get your brand message out there, because you have these people who just want to share the message, so whether that be providing, clothing with your branded material on it, or whether you're empowering employees to be thought leaders in the industry and share their input, share your content on social media. Those are great aspects to really attract talent to want to be a part of that culture. Building a candidate pipeline with limited resources is one thing, but building a diverse and inclusive pool of candidates is another. So Anant, what can TA and HR professionals do to use what they've got to fill their talent funnel with more diverse applicants?
Sure. Adding to that point on brand consistency, primarily recruiters should be much more careful in removing unconscious bias. It could be the job description, your company description, anything that you put out on the web. It's much more than ever that you need to be much more careful on what you project yourself as. Second would be to use all possible integrations or resources that you have. It could be your recruitment software, or it could be your, as you said, the alumni network or the employee referrals. Are you inviting vendors to submit candidates or agencies to submit these candidates? When you talk about job board integrations through your recruitment software, it's not just that you can use something like Facebook, LinkedIn, or other social media networks. You can also look at something like job board aggregators. That is, you provide or post these jobs to the aggregator. They would then post it to, let's say, 100 other job boards. So you can widen the funnel about where you're getting these talent from. A good talent can come up from anywhere. So in order to make sure that you get diverse applications and good candidates, you have to make sure the reach that you have is also wide enough. You don't have to stick to something like, okay, I posted on LinkedIn, that should be enough. I understand that you may get, let's say, 100 different candidates from LinkedIn, but what if in case you consider something like a job board aggregator that would then post it to several other job boards, and then you have 10x of the actual volume that you may get from a specific job board. Building a social profile, as I was saying initially, I understand you post to Facebook or LinkedIn, but what if in case your company profile, your personal profile in these profiles are, let's say, limited? Going back on the brand consistency, you have to ensure that the data that you have, the way you project yourself is going to be linear, unique, and almost the same across all your job boards and websites. This way that it's not just the existing candidates, but also passive candidates would be like, okay, this is something that is exciting for me. Let me give it a try. So this way you would be able to fill the talent funnel and with diverse set of candidates.
Yeah, and I want to add to that really quickly because I think you brought up some great points. But one thing that I really think is crucial in attracting and retaining, a diverse and inclusive pool of candidates is recognizing that there are underrepresented groups out there that are not necessarily, they're being neglected throughout this process because maybe they haven't had the opportunities in life to achieve these certain qualifications. So I think one huge component, which I'll talk about in a moment, and something we talked heavily about in our webinar in January with Elizabeth Varghese, the HR person at IBM, and talking about how important hiring for those transferable skill sets are. They might not have the necessary qualifications, but if there are certain skill sets that can easily transfer over and can be developed upon, that can be a huge difference in making your candidate pipeline more diverse and inclusive. And adding on to that as well, providing those professional development opportunities after knowing those transferable skill sets can really help those individuals to learn and grow within your organization. Another thing too, it's a little bit weird in this virtual environment we're living in because of the pandemic, but something that recruiters and HR professionals have done prior to this is to go into those underrepresented communities and really scout there and try and find those great people who can work in your organization that might be neglected. So I think you brought up some great points there, and it's definitely something that is a future initiative that HR professionals are starting to care more about as they move into trying to find the right talent and the right fit for their organization.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, Brianna, and something that you brought up was recognizing unconscious biases that might be present in job descriptions, in panelist interviews and conversations like those. So being aware of those and responding appropriately to make sure that you are incorporating diversity, you are incorporating a widespread array of values that different people hold, and making sure that you're not just coming or approaching a job description from your kind of stagnant standpoint, but that you're really addressing and including people from all different backgrounds, whether that's geographic, socioeconomic, that you're making sure that you're aware of those things. And, that might even involve, making sure that the panelists for interviewers is diversified as well, that they are being representative of a lot of different backgrounds and personalities and job types. So I think that's really important. Great that you brought that up. Now, Brianna, as we begin to see this generational shift in the workforce, how can smaller organizations attract and retain the younger generations that are, more prone to job hopping?
I love this question because there are so much organizations can do to attract and retain talent without having it cost an arm and a leg. And one of my favorite examples for this is promoting autonomy in the workplace. In smaller organizations, it's not always feasible to, have these top of the line benefits. However, there are other great benefits you can offer that aren't, like I said earlier, insurance or PTO, that still make for a really great work experience that sets you apart from the competition. And, that's where promoting autonomy in the workplace comes into play here. So, this idea of autonomy is that you're providing employees a certain amount or a specific type of freedom in the workplace that allows them to take ownership in their day-to-day and empowers them as employees. Whether this being allowing them to have flexible work schedules or giving them the opportunity to decide how work gets done and when it gets done, or allowing them to pursue passion projects and really encourage them to, utilize those skill sets, can be huge in attracting the right talent. As Blake said, when searching for these, the right people, what you need to do is you need to set clear expectations for them and then get out of their way and allow them to take ownership in their work. Because by allowing individuals to take ownership in their work, it makes them more invested in the company's successes and failures, and that ultimately impacts retention, productivity, and overall employee happiness. So, autonomy, I think, is a great benefit you can offer, and I think it is really empowering for employees to experience. The second thing is to figure out what your brand offers them in the short and long term. As we see these newer generations, they are used to that instant satisfaction that has, come from social media and from online and online shopping. So, your organization should really be focusing on how can you show them the benefits that they'll instantaneously get from working at your organization, and then also how they can get benefits in the long term, through internal hiring or career pathing or, professional development programs. We do live in a time right now where it is a candidate's market. So really utilizing, those specific long-term and short-term benefits helps distinguish you from the competitors. The third thing is to speak to them where they're at. As I said, we are a group of people who all live online. We spend a lot of our time online, and we are so, used to experiencing our world in that way. So organizations have a great opportunity to get their brand in front of candidates before they even apply. And by coming to them in meaningful ways, showing what their organization's doing that is important and why people should want to get involved. And since it is a candidate market, taking that extra initiative to use the platform to go to your candidates and tell them why they'd be a great fit and, how they can grow within your organization. Which, going directly into that is the fourth thing, which is focusing on a personalized candidate experience. And, in our own lives, we live this hyper-personalized experience. So why shouldn't we get that in our work experience as well? So when you're interviewing candidates or communicating with candidates, ask them what their goals are and what their, career looks like down the line, and then show them how your organization operates to help make that happen for employees. This idea that you don't want employees to leave, while it is definitely, obviously you never want your employees to leave, but by promoting them and giving the opportunities to leave, it gives them more of an incentive to want to stay because they know you're invested in their career development. And the fifth thing that I want to talk about is thinking about essentialism. In a world of that instant gratification that I was talking about and where we have that lack of patience, make the application process as seamless as possible. And Anant, that's what you were talking about, and how we have these hefty application processes. And, oftentimes when people are looking for a job, it is a full-time job in itself, and it can be very taxing on individuals. So when you face these application processes that are hefty, you're missing out on great talent because they're burnt out from the application process. So, as Blake suggests, make the application process as seamless as possible. If you can, make it so you can, get the applicants in front of your face as quick as possible and determine if they're the right fit for your organization. Another thing, in his organization specifically, they still deal with paper application processes, and his biggest suggestion was to keep it at a page. Anything more than that is too taxing. And so really getting those candidates through the door face-to-face is key here. Now, the newer generation's demands for the workplace are flipping business operations upside down. And especially, what we've seen throughout the pandemic as business operations have drastically changed. One thing to keep in mind is that businesses who fail to keep up with the times are those that are more likely to fail in the future successes. So, Siobhan, I want to direct this to you. Why should organizations focus on filling their candidate pipeline for the future?
Yeah, excellent points for organizations to attract and retain younger generations. Like you rightly mentioned, businesses right now are at an inflection point. Digital innovation is disrupting almost every industry, and organizations must adapt to remain competitive. While many business leaders understand this transformation, they're acting out of necessity. Their strategy to do so often fails to carry out into an updated hiring and talent strategy. Bringing on talent to take a business where it wants to go and not just where it is today is actually central to a sustainable organization. It is risky to continue to only hire people who meet the requirements for the current job and task at hand. You want a product marketer, you want a digital marketer, for example. You just cannot look at a candidate who is good at SEOs and SEMs. You need to think for 5 years ahead. 5 years ahead. Department heads needs to understand the importance of hiring talent to diversify their team skills and bringing in points. That is easy, but obviously that's easier said than done. By hiring for the future, rather than just filling positions, you're not only making your job easier, but you're also making your company's job better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you focus in on that, when you think about the long term, when you strategize for above and beyond just the short term horizon, you're actually helping build a longer term, more sustainable foundation for not just the organization, but for the candidate who's going to be fit for that role and eventually hired on. So, Brianna, while recruiting talent normally falls on HR and TA professionals, what other stakeholders within the organization can assist with recruiting talent to make up for those limited resources?
That's a great question. So often we place these heavy expectations on HR and TA professionals to meet these lofty organizational goals. However, it can't rely solely on them. There's no way that they can maintain quite that lift. So that's where these other stakeholders within an organization are so important, because there are so many people in an organization who can really impact the recruitment and retention of quality talent. So, one of the suggestions that Blake had was, if you have an in-house marketing department, use them and collaborate with them to, help with brand consistency in terms of copy for your job postings and emails. Maybe you're a thought leader in the HR space and using them to help with the tone and style and delivery, just making sure there's that consistency piece there, but also aligning with them to make sure that your vision for the type of talent you want fits the marketing department's vision for where they're trying to direct the organization, because that alignment there is super important. Another alignment that is very important is the alignment between HR and TA professionals on their recruitment initiatives. Now, although HR can also be a recruiter, these roles are completely different. So one thing that is really crucial here is making sure that their initiatives are aligned to make sure that they're getting the right talent. So participating in intake meetings with hiring managers, making sure that you understand the type of talent that they're looking for, if you're getting the right talent, what the retention of that talent looks like, what the turnover looks like, and then assessing things like wage analysis, defining strategic approach, and really setting and defining those roles between HR and TA to produce the strongest recruitment initiative that you can. Now, the third way is to use the leaders within your organization, and this one is huge. Leaders make a huge impact on the employee experience. We recently did a webinar with Walter Marquise, Beyond Trust, Director of HR Operations, and he was expressing how people don't follow causes or organizations. They follow worthy leaders who promote causes that they can believe in. And so really, these leaders play such an influential and impactful role in the experience. So use these leaders in your brand strategy to really promote them and highlight them and make it so people want to work with these individuals. We know that workplace culture definitely can't start and stop with HR and TA. As I was saying, that's a pretty lofty goal, and you need other stakeholders to be involved, right? You need the managers to be involved and the employees to be involved, and you really have to create this common mission and create programs and set them in place to provide opportunities to build this strong culture. But Anant, what is the importance of internal support of recruitment and retention initiatives?
You made a great point on autonomy and the role of leaders. No initiative in a company would succeed unless it's properly backed by the team, specifically by the internal HR, senior management, and the leaders. This feedback would boil down on the key initiatives, the decisions that they actually want to make. So the activities, when you start questioning them, or if you don't give them the room to improve or to try out new things, it can backfire. A common example, let's go back to the employee referrals. Without internal support, be it from the HR, it could also be the employees that work in, the candidate pipeline would not be robust enough. Again, it boils again on the open jobs and also for passive hiring. So you open up the referrals. It could be that you have employees referring them. It could be that you put out to vendors. They refer back on these, but you need to have a proper coordination and sort of a rapport with the internal tools and the team. This will make sure that the candidates that you give in would, again, be diverse, as we spoke about, but it'll also be more robust on a variety of candidates. There's also a cost of bad hire, the likelihood of which would be an higher with an external recruitment. So when you talk about internal recruitment tools, again, employee referrals and others would need to be proper, and this could be done only with the internal support of your employees and the company. And this has to be set up by the senior management, the leaders, and also the internal stakeholders in talent acquisition space.
Yeah, and Anant, I just want to jump in here really quickly. You were talking about the cost of a bad hire, and we recently partnered with Aptitude Research, and Madeline Arano discovered that the cost of a bad hire is pretty significant. Alone, your talent acquisition costs are around $4,165, and that's just to train and onboard employees. But then it costs anywhere from 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace them, which is astronomical. So really, those internal stakeholders make a huge difference in that retention piece, which as we'll talk about later, definitely impacts your recruitment as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Brianna, since you're on that topic of making sure that there is that alignment to avoid that exponential cost of a bad hire, we know that, while automated HR technology solutions are essentially for the future, many organizations still haven't reached the adoption phase of a full comprehensive HR tech stack. So what are some ways for smaller organizations to effectively use the technology that they already have to make up for limitations?
Right, and this is a super important question, and it's something that Blake in the original webinar really focused on, and how we have this technology that can really support us in our initiatives, and it's not always necessary, or the pressure isn't always there to adopt certain technologies. So some of his suggestions were to use what you already have and make use of your iPhone. This is a piece of technology you have with you all day, every day, and you can connect in so many ways on there, whether it be through calling or texting or social media. It really gives you a great opportunity to, capture those moments, those great moments that your organization is having or that your employees are participating in, and then sharing that out. And that goes in hand with the second thing, which is nurturing those passive candidates, by getting your brand out there and by promoting the great things you're doing. You can really help to keep your talent pool updated and then stick in their mind for future considerations for job opportunities. The third thing goes right in hand with that is sharing your company's purpose across all external facing outlets. And now you can use the technology you have to really capitalize on your brand message. Dig for those feel good stories and those amazing accomplishments that our employees are achieving in their work experience at your organization, and then share that anywhere you can. Job boards, social media, your website, really just try and capitalize on that and show them what type of great experience they can have. And eventually you'll help to persuade them to want to, join your company. Not to mention, this also kind of goes into what I was talking about with brand ambassadors. And when you're promoting content that people feel prideful in and that they can connect with, their sense of community there, then this will encourage current employees to want to share that message out and to really impact those recruitment initiatives with other people who see this great organization that so and so is part of. The fourth thing there is to use technology to mutually connect. We have so many opportunities to get involved with our candidates, and really what we need to do is be focusing on how we can connect with them in modern ways, whether that be connecting with them on social media, or perhaps you're setting up a FaceTime call instead of a Google Meets or a Zoom call, or maybe you're texting them instead of emailing them. There's actually studies out there that show that by texting candidates, you increase the time to fill and then increase the likelihood that they're going to respond. So this could be a distinguishing factor between them going with you over the competition, because you could get them in the job quicker by utilizing that texting feature. While organizations can skate by with these limited resources, it's not sustainable as your organization continues to scale and grow. So Ananth, what should smaller organizations keep in mind when determining how to prioritize their technology investments to assist with recruitment and retention initiatives?
Yeah, this is a very great question. Before we go ahead into how to invest, we have to think about what we need to invest in. That is, you understand your requirements. Is the current system good enough? What do people want to do with the new system? Of course, there's always a question, do we really need a new system? It's something like, there could be something like buyer's remorse per se, or it could be that people are tired of something. So depending on these answers, you can invest in technology that fits in your budget and also checks all your boxes. You need to come up with a plan of what really that you need. So smaller companies specifically need to evaluate the company size, the price, then come into easy of use, what tools does it come with. You made a great point on texting, video calls, FaceTimes, and so on. So if you're going to choose a recruitment software, you need to go into what job boards is it linked to? Where can I source these candidates? Can I text candidates within the system? Can I FaceTime or use Google Meet within the product? Or does it speak to, let's say, Zoom or any other video conferencing technology right within the box? So I don't have to go into multiple tools. So apart from this, like the sourcing features, analytics, setting up, how easy it is, can I do video interviews? So in my opinion, it's that a recruitment software must be able to integrate and work seamlessly with other apps as well. It shouldn't sit as silos where the data only sits there and you need to export and manually do it. An example could be going back on the LinkedIn integrations, or you post a job, it has to be in LinkedIn, it has to be in Facebook, it has to be in Twitter. So across all your mediums. So ensure that the data just doesn't sit there. All applications on these platforms go into your recruitment software. It's not just in the short run, but also in the long run that it saves loads of time. It streamlines your recruitment process for the whole company, which again goes back into time equal to money. So you save a lot more money, and the more you keep shifting to multiple tools and technologies, you eventually lose time and lose track of what exactly you want to do. So my recommendation would be to list down what exactly you want. You can try with multiple vendors or evaluate them, but ensure that whatever you stick into, you stick it for the long run and not just for the intermediate, like 1 to 2 years or 1 to 3 years. It's for the long run.
Right.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched on, small businesses with limited resources, really taking the time to truly evaluate what those needs are. When you boil it all down, if I were queen for a day, or if you had a wish list, of course you would want top of the line tech stack integrations. But for organizations that do have those limited resources, it is crucial to identify what your immediate needs are and what platforms are going to address those appropriately. So glad you touched on that. And Brianna, while many companies focus on how to get talent in the door, they fail to figure out how to keep them in. So before running full speed towards attracting talent, companies have to make sure that they have a solid foundation to build off of and promote, which Anant, I know you have addressed throughout this webinar today. So, Brianna, to close us out here today, can you give us 5 ways that companies can retain employees with their internal resources, and how a strong retention strategy comes full circle to create a strong recruitment strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. And, to build a foundation that employees want to support, there are a couple ways you can start. And one of those being promoting internal career mobility. And this one is huge because internal career mobility creates a culture that people want to, learn and grow within your organization, which inherently impacts that overall retention piece. And then, when employees know that they have the opportunity to move up within your organization, it makes them more willing to invest in your organization and to become more inclined and motivated to, be more productive and to increase their skills, which are great benefits to your organization. Not to mention when the candidate on the candidate side, when they see that and they can see the type of professional development opportunities that exist within your organization, it really helps to be that attractive component when determining whether or not to, go with you or the competitor. The second way that you can, start to retain those employees is to advertise those open positions internally first. So often organizations are so focused on hiring out for the talent they need to fill, a role. However, they're often missing, great potential candidates right in front of their, right under their noses, which is their current employees. So, before you decide to post that job posting externally, share it internally and allow your current employees the opportunity to be recognized for a different role. The third thing is to allow transferring to different departments. And, when you have a great employee, they're a good culture fit, they're a hard worker, you don't want to lose those people. As Anant mentioned, and as I was talking about with aptitude research, the cost of a bad hire is huge. So when you have someone who understands the ins and outs of a business, it is costly to lose them. So instead, consider the option to allow them to transfer to other departments. Whether maybe they're just not jiving with the department, maybe they're not passionate with that specific department, or maybe they're even considering a career change, and there might be opportunities within your organization to help them grow and stay with your organization and fulfill that need for a career change. The fourth thing here is more aligned with those recruitment initiatives, and it's something we talked about, and that's a hiring for transferable skill sets and providing opportunities for professional development. And as I was talking about, this really helps to build your talent pool and your candidate pool of underrepresented populations by giving them the opportunity to be seen and to show their skills, and then also showing them the value of that professional career development opportunity and helping them learn and grow within your organization. And as I said, this alone helps with the retention piece largely, because when you invest in your employees, they want to invest in your company too. And the fifth and last thing that I'm going to talk about today is implementing employee recognition programs. According to Gallup, one of the top reasons that employees leave their current job is because they do not feel appreciated. So, keep that workplace culture alive and share the amazing things that your employees do. Don't be afraid to call out specific people or certain teams, and figure out how you can help celebrate them, whether it be a recent promotion or maybe they received Employee of the Month, maybe you're sharing their achievements across social media, or you're giving them opportunities for, mentorship opportunities, or maybe there's competitions where they can win cash prizes, or maybe simply you are, encouraging managers or other leaders within the organization to participate in that private recognition and show your employees that they are valued, heard, and seen. Ultimately, the most essential asset to any organization is its people. You take care of your people and they take care of the business. That term, you build it and they will come, really comes into play here, because as you strengthen your workplace culture, you create an environment that people want to get in part of, want to be involved with, and want to experience. So that's why your retention initiatives inherently impact your recruitment success.
Yeah, wow, I love all of that, Bree. And just the point of fostering inclusivity and diversity within your workforce so that people feel heard, they feel seen, they feel valued is so crucial. Understanding that they're not just a number within your database, not just a number on the employee sheet, but they're a face, they're a name, they have a personality, they might have dogs at home. So understanding, getting to know them, and truly valuing them is so crucial for really retention in the long term. So I love that you pointed that out. Well, looking at the clock here, guys, looks like we are at the end of our time. So Brianna, Shravan, Anand, thank you so much for joining us today. I really want to give a big shout out to Zoho for sponsoring today's HR Table Talk. Also, for our live attendees today, go ahead and stick around for our post-webinar survey in order to redeem those 0.75 SHRM and or HRCI credits today. And for any of our on-demand listeners, go ahead and check your email for instructions on how to redeem your credit. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. We had a great discussion and hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thanks everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.